Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast. Tuesday, 3:30 p.m., a loaded show. We're going to talk about the first of 3 days of mandatory minicamp. Everybody on the roster, except for Landon Dickerson, there participating in some degree in practice. We're going to talk about everything we saw, the moving parts in the secondary. Jalen Hurts, another interception, but did he bounce back from last week? We're going to talk about what Nick Sirianni said, what Lane Johnson said, what DeVonta Smith said, maybe Mekhi Becton, a player to watch over the next couple of months. We're going to talk about what Zack heard from the coordinator, from the assistant coaches yesterday. Jeff Stoutland speaks for the first time in a while. We got to hear from a bunch of new assistant coaches. Lots to get to, but we have to start with the big news of the day. Zack Berman, the official announcement, the franchise, Philadelphia Eagles, a curated history of the birds, coming to you on September 24th. Pre-order now, and if you are watching this show, if you are listening to this show, you owe it to Zack Berman to pre-order this bad boy. Get those numbers up. Zack, congratulations.
I appreciate it. I did not expect that to start the show about mandatory minicamp. We have much to discuss, but no, I appreciate that genuinely. We've made reference to this. We've made references to this throughout the past year. This consumed a lot of my time and attention during the summer last year.
We were expecting the Jay Liggins biography.
So I'll spend a lot of time this summer. I imagine probably more time than I should discussing it on the show and maybe kind of the process and some nuggets in there. But for now, I'll just say that, yes, it's called the franchise, the Philadelphia Eagles, the curated history of the birds. It's on the last 25 years of the Eagles, and it kind of combines my reporting over the past 13 years with some new reporting, with some extensive research to relive some of the moments and remember some of the characters, all the executives, the coaches, the quarterbacks, the icons, the stars. And it's the type of book that I imagine, you'll give it to people during the holiday season who are Eagles fans. And it relives a lot of the good times. So I look forward to discussing it more, but I appreciate you bringing it up on the show.
Well, as everybody is saying in the chat, we've been waiting for this announcement. We get the official announcement. We got to give you what you deserve here. How about a Zack? Zack.
No.
Zack. Absolutely. I think at the end of the show today, Zack, I know you don't want to focus on it too much today, but at the end of the show, I want to do a little Q&A, a little press conference about what people can be looking for from this book. Make sure we get those numbers up.
I don't know if I have my talking points down yet, but all right, we'll do it. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get prepped by PR yet.
Well, that's all right. It means we get more of an honest take, more of a
True.
The real uncut stuff. Okay. Let's talk about minicamp today, Zack. Explain to people who are from the outside how and in what ways minicamp was different than the OTAs that we saw over the past couple of weeks.
Sure. Well, first off, everyone was there except for Landon Dickerson, right? Mandatory minicamp. This is actually the first time that the Eagles have had mandatory minicamp under Nick Sirianni. They kind of rescheduled or canceled it in 2021 during it was still COVID at that point, but it was like the tail end of a lot of the COVID effects at that point. And then 2022, they had a short offseason program. In 2023, an even shorter one. So this is the first time under Nick where they've had it. So you're required by contract to be there unless it's excused. Landon Dickerson was excused. You're allowed to be at the facility for longer. Okay, so these days can mimic the training camp schedule more so than phase 2 or than the OTAs can. And and practice wasn't that long today. It was an hour plus. Actually, I thought I'd be doing practice from the Eagles, or I thought I'd be doing the show from the Eagles facility. They ended sooner than we anticipated. I was able to get home. But yeah, it more closely resembles the training camp schedule. And that's not just the time on the field, but that's the time they're allowed to be at the facility. So Nick Sirianni made a point today of referencing the meetings that they have. They can get meetings done now that they would typically wait until training camp to do. It was almost like it was a revelation by Nick that they can do it this time of year. But they are, because according to the CBA, you're allowed to spend more time in the building during mandatory minicamp than during OTAs.
Gotcha. Okay. So because of that, we saw a couple of players today who we had not seen when we had little glimpses into OTAs over the past 2 weeks. We saw Lane Johnson and talked to him. We'll talk about that. We saw DeVonta Smith, talk to him. Josh Sweat was out on the field after not being there for those practices. Also there, Zack, was James Bradberry. And this was interesting because in his press conference before practice, Nick Sirianni mentioned that he was asked about James Bradberry, and he said, one thing we've seen from James is that he's a team player. He's versatile. Not only can he play on the outside, we saw last year he could play on the inside, and you will see him working at safety today during practice. And we have talked about this. If there was a path to the roster to being on the 2024 Eagles for James Bradberry, safety would make the most sense. Now they have some players at safety, but there could be an opportunity there. You could think that the skill set maybe would work there. However, just as we were expecting this, James Bradberry during individual drills sort of walks off the field with a trainer and does not participate in practice. Did you think that this was pre-planned? Just happenstance? What did you make of the Bradberry situation today?
Yeah, as I was packing up my bag, some people in the media house said they saw him fall down. Did you see him fall?
I did not see him fall down.
Okay, so I did not see him fall. So it seemed, when I saw it, like almost convenient timing for him to go inside, right? There was speculation, will he practice? Is he going to get reps? That kind of thing. So it seemed now, if he fell to the ground, right, then there's a legitimate reason to look at him.
It would be it feels like it would probably be too dramatic to play it up this way.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying he has a nagging hamstring injury,
exactly,
or something like that, right?
Sure. So that's where. So I would think that something happened during warmups
But also from his perspective, if there is anything minor, there's no reason to push through.
But so I got an alert on my phone from the Discord channel, and I have not been able to address it. Right, I was at the practice field, got in my car, came over here. I can go in the Discord after this, but I'll address it on the show too. The question was about injury guarantees in his contract, and it's important to note James Bradberry's contract's fully guaranteed, right? So if he got hurt, they would still owe him the money. Sometimes contracts aren't guaranteed because of injury. So if a guy comes and he gets hurt, then you have to pay him the money.
It's more if he doesn't get hurt, then they still owe him the money anyway, right?
Yeah, they owe him the money regardless. This is different than some players who you're like, don't come to camp because we aren't going to keep you. And if
you're benching Derek Carr week 17 because you don't want him to get hurt.
Exactly. Yeah, Bradberry, they need to pay him no matter what here, right? So that's just the long and short of it.
I did find the safety thing, the offering of that from Nick Sirianni interesting. I still don't believe that James Bradberry will be on the team in 2024. I don't expect that he'll be on the team through the first week of training camp or so. However, if part of the posturing is we don't need to trade this guy, we have a spot for him in the secondary, safety makes sense. But I still do believe that it is there's no reason for the Eagles to release him now. They might as well wait and see if somebody comes calling, if somebody gets injured elsewhere, and they can get some kind of compensation.
Yeah, and now Nick Sirianni mentioned guys like Charles Woodson, and it's happened quite a few times. Players later in their career making the adjustment from corner to safety. Rod Woodson is
Malcolm Jenkins.
An example of that. Malcolm Jenkins did earlier in his career.
Sure,
right. So that wasn't necessarily age, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Patrick Peterson's done this recently, right? So this does happen. Now, I didn't think James Bradberry was particularly good on the inside last year. So
yeah, he's not a quick twitch guy.
Sure. So it lends me to think that safety might not be in the cards for him, but there is validity to the fact that the Eagles need depth of safety. Now that said, I don't see James Bradberry as like your fourth safety, right? That doesn't fit him or fit the team. Like had they not signed CJ Gardner-Johnson, if this was a year like I think back to 2020 when the Eagles brought Jalen Mills back specifically to move from corner to safety, maybe that makes a little more sense here. But the Eagles would have three guys ahead of him at safety. I don't necessarily see that as a pathway to being like on the. If James Bradberry's on your team, he should be contributing, right? But who knows? And I still don't think he'll be here. I think when they drafted the 2 corners, I thought they had been keeping him because he didn't know how the draft would turn out, right? If they took an offensive tackle in the first round and a wide receiver in the second round, and they wait till round 3 for a corner, then in that case, it behooves you to keep Bradberry, to see what you have. Now, and you've been on this all along, you have Mitchell, you have DeGene. We'll get to it today. I really like the way Kelee Ringo looked. Isaiah Rodgers is
let's
well.
I would like to focus on the secondary here at the beginning of the show. So
exactly. So the Eagles have the surplus. So I don't see where James Bradberry fits at this point. You want him as a potential trade candidate because there are cap savings if you were to trade him. But I still don't know if that would happen.
Okay, let's stick at the secondary now. Bradberry was out of the picture during practice today because of that injury, however serious it may or may not be. And so one of the questions was, Kelee Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers, where's the pecking order there? Who's gonna be the first team corner on the outside opposite Darius Slay at this point in time? And we got our answer. It was Kelee Ringo today in the starting defense. For the most part, it was Darius Slay and Kelee Ringo on the outside, Reed Blankenship and C.J. Gardner at safety, with Avonte Maddox as the nickel. There were a couple times where it was actually Tyler Hall slid in, and Avonte Maddox, I think, took 1 or 2 reps at safety there. But it was Ringo all day on the outside. And as you teased earlier, I thought he looked really good. And I think that he has looked good in the 2 times that we have seen him. He made a really nice play on a deep ball down the field. I believe it was intended for Paris Campbell. He was in tight coverage on a catch by A.J. Brown in one-on-one coverage on the outside, did a few other nice things during 7-on-7 and team drills. I think Kelee Ringo has looked very good, and I think we've talked about it. If it's not going to be Quinyon Mitchell week 1, I think it's much more likely that it's Kelee Ringo than Isaiah Rodgers.
I'm glad you said it because I think with me sometimes there's confirmation bias. I've been a Kelee guy since they drafted him. I was a Kelee guy going into the draft in 2023. So
you can't just take ownership of the guy. Everything he does, you don't just get to be like, I called this.
That's not at all what I was doing. What I was saying is that I was sometimes when, like you with Christian Ellis or you with, Sua or Coyote, whenever something happens with that player, it could like when Christian Ellis gets an interception in practice, if you're pointing it out, it's like, all right, yeah, you're obviously going to spotlight.
How dare you? I call it like I see it objectively every single time.
Yeah. So, but
there's no bias in my description of Christian Ellis or anybody else.
It's not a matter of bias. What I'm saying is that my opinions can sometimes be informed by my perspective of the player, and I've liked Kelee Ringo for a while here. Yeah, I thought, the plays you mentioned, I also had a play in my notes where I thought he ran well with John Ross. It was an underthrown ball to John Ross down the left sideline. But
Ross had about a half a step. I would have liked to see that ball be a little bit better thrown, but that's okay.
But I thought Kelee wasn't like burned on the play, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So, and he looks more confident. I thought there were times last year in training camp in particular where it just looked like so much was going on for him, and he kind of didn't have his feet underneath him, and he just looks more confident this year. And we've said it time and time again with Kelee Ringo this offseason that the youngest player on the team last year, right, came out as a third year junior. He's still a really young prospect. We've said younger than Quinyon Mitchell. And so I'm not saying that Quinyon Mitchell's the day 1 starter right away. Now, Quinyon Mitchell's the first round pick, the top cornerback in the draft. He has a lot going for him. I get that. But Kelee Ringo, just keep your eye on Kelee this summer because he has all the tools. He certainly has the pedigree, 5-star prospect, day 1 starter at Georgia, right? Interception in the national championship game. And it's
younger than
not
Quinyon
as if
Mitchell.
It's not as if Quinyon doesn't start day 1, like Quinyon and Ringo could still be your starters once Slay, moves on here, right? And Quinyon, once he gets his feet underneath him, can become the number one guy. I don't want to overstate it. I was impressed with Keely Ringo today.
Quinny Mitchell, I actually thought also had a good day today working with the twos on the outside. It was him and Isaiah Rodgers on the outside, Cooper DeJean on the inside. And I did not see, you can correct me if you saw it differently, but I only saw Cooper DeJean in the nickel today. I did not see him on the outside at any point today or at safety.
Correct. I saw Mitchell inside once, but I saw...
Yeah, it was sort of like a dime linebacker deal.
Yeah.
We saw that like a one snap last week as well, which is an interesting thing, a thread to follow potentially. But
yes.
Then you had Tristan McCollum and Avonte Maddox as the safeties with the twos. I thought Mitchell had a good day. There was one play where he undercut a Kenny Pickett throw to the right side. I believe it was for Joseph Ngata and forced an incompletion. Didn't get a ton of balls thrown at him, but I thought he acquitted himself well.
By the way, I just want to make this clear, okay? On draft day, I gave the Keely Ringo pick an A-. You gave him a B, okay?
Wait,
I
didn't give him a B.
No, you gave the pick a B.
Yeah, but it's trading a future third-round pick. It's not an indictment of Keely Ringo.
No, but I'm saying, so I literally wrote here. I preface this by saying there's probably some confirmation bias to how
you don't have to get hung up on this.
But I must be consistent.
Why are you making this the Ringo relitigation?
Because you're acting as if I'm a Johnny come lately.
No, I'm not acting like that. I'm just saying, just because you liked him in the draft doesn't mean that you gotta everything he does, every good practice he has, you gotta pound your chest.
Because why would someone ever pound their chest about someone that they thought was a good player? That's never happened on the show before.
No. You call it like you see it.
You call it like you see it. I got you. Okay. Conan says ZB has receipts. Yeah, that's the great thing about the internet. Everything you write's on there.
Okay.
Except some things from the Star Ledger, which randomly NJ.com's taken down from when I wrote there.
Okay. So you're right. I think you are right here. Let's not talk about today's practice. Let's talk about our draft takes from last year. Who else did you like?
That's not all I'm saying. All right, let's get back to it.
No, who else did you like
in the draft last year?
Yeah.
I like Jalen Carter.
Big one. Yeah, we know you loved Nolan Smith. You thought he was going to be their pick at number 10.
Yeah,
puff your chest out about that.
I was not as high on Steen and Sidney Brown as you were. I think
as I was.
Yeah, I think you were. I got to look that up.
I don't know. I was a big Steen guy.
Okay. Nonetheless, let's get back to the show. I don't know how.
I don't know how.
You don't know how. You don't know how. Okay. All right.
We're waylaid.
So in the secondary too, I think it's also worth noting, like Maddox.
By the way, in my shadow draft, I had Keely Ringo as the person I would have picked there.
Oh, okay. You gave the pick a B. I gave it an A-.
I gave the process a B, not the player.
Okay, but I'm saying I like the pick and the process. Anyways, let's get back to the slot cornerback spot.
I can't.
You can't. Okay.
No, I can't.
Then as you regroup, I will talk. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Don't make this a bit where you stay silent for 10 minutes and make it awkward. So Avonte Maddox I
did like Jalen Hyatt. I liked him. Yeah.
Okay. Want to keep going?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. So, what do you make of Avonte Maddox? We did speak to him after practice, but he was with the first team in the slot. He was with the second team at safety. What did you make of Avonte Maddox?
I think the Avonte thing is interesting. We talked to him before, and I asked him just sort of like openly, when the team released you, was that like a blow to the ego at all? Like this team that has had you for a long time just lets you go, lets you hit the open market? And he's like, blow to the ego? Never. I would never take something as a blow to the ego. Like the ego is all I got, which was interesting. I don't know if he like misunderstood the question. I wasn't trying to be like, boy, do you stink. It's like, but the team released you. Like they let you go before did that affect you at all? No, he believes in himself. That's all he's got. He said he was in touch with Howie Roseman throughout the process. Howie said, like, if you don't find what you're looking for, we're open to a reunion. Obviously, that is how things played out. I maintain that, like, I think if Avonte Maddox makes it through camp healthy, he will be on the team. He gives them versatility. He can do a lot, and he can do it at a reasonably high level. At probably an average starter level and inside. The problem is that he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he acknowledged that. He said that, like, that has been my problem. So we will see how it plays out. I think that the way that he's been used through the first 3 practices that we have seen is probably an indication that Vic Fangio likes the fact that he can do a little bit of everything.
Yes, and the thing there, we talk about safety depth. I think Maddox is the type of player who you keep as a slot guy and your third, fourth safety, because I would rather have Maddox on the team than Mekhi Garner, right? If it comes down to those two, I would rather.
Why you gotta throw Mekhi Garner under the bus?
My point is, I would rather keep Maddox instead of a fourth safety. I would rather keep Maddox, someone who can play in the slot for you and play safety, and has this veteran experience. I would rather that than Mekhi Garner. So I do think he has value. He needs to stay healthy. He's paying attention to his sleep. He's wearing both the Aura ring and the Whoop band. I am an Aura guy. My wife wears the Aura ring as well.
Okay.
My brother is more of a Whoop guy.
What's the difference?
They're 2 totally different things.
Explain it. I don't know. I'm ill-educated here.
Yeah, well, the Aura's a ring, okay, and it has its own proprietary, sensors and metrics and whatnot, and Whoop is a band, and they
both circles.
Yeah, but one you wear around your wrist, one you wear on your finger, and
so far you have not made the case that they are completely different.
Yeah, well, they collect different. They collect similar data, but in different ways. It's like an Apple Watch and a Fitbit, right? Or a Garmin. Like they're just different. They're different tracking systems. Okay,
they sound incredibly similar so far.
The pricing is different.
Okay. Which one's more expensive?
Well, though, I think the Whoop has a higher subscription price.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So the piece of technology is not expensive, but it's the.
I don't know. I think it's a high subscription price. I could be wrong, but in any event, he's wearing both, so he has a lot of he has a lot of data.
It's not conflicting advice that he's getting.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of data for his sleep, but it is helpful. Like I will tell you, I should probably adhere to what the Aura ring tells me more, but
let me guess, telling you you're not sleeping enough.
Yes, and it's telling me I'm getting really good deep sleep. So when I'm sleeping, I'm getting very efficient sleep. But when I'm not getting the volume of sleep that I need.
Well, what good is it if you're not going to listen to it?
Well, it's like I don't have the example off the top of my head. I like data. So if I'm struggling one day in terms of like I'm not as efficient at work, I'm tired, I'm procrastinating, maybe I'm lagging in a workout, like I can track how I did based on how I sleep, and I can see what works and what doesn't. So
I do think it's interesting though, like from a just from a mental standpoint, for Avonte Maddox, entire career has been about, can I stay healthy? I'm good if I'm healthy. I can't stay healthy. Like this fight with his own body. Like he joked, like, he bristles at the ego idea, but like if he can just stay healthy, he's good. And so for him, it would make sense. Like he's trying to do everything he can, get every little thing he can do to make sure that he gets to stay on the field.
Yeah, injuries are hard because like it's a collision sport, right? It's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport, and you've heard Jason Kelsey say it time and time again. The injury rate is 100% in the NFL. Now, some players get hurt more than others, and that's something that Avonte Maddox needs to figure out. But I wish him well with it because he's a good player. He's a likable guy, but he needs to stay healthy, and we'll see how he survives this training camp.
I mean, you got to write a story on his Aura results, right? You got to compare. I think you got to do like a weekly comparison of your Aura results.
I mean, he plays professional football. I don't play professional football. I have 2 kids at home. He doesn't have 2 kids at home, right?
Wow.
So
don't get defensive.
No, it's not. It's not apples for apples. It's not. I'm not
saying compare your results, but compare the way that you feel about your results. Let's talk over our own relationship with our body.
He's physically exerting himself more throughout the day than I am, frankly.
I don't know. I'd like to see him make it through a Rite Aid disclaimer.
Fair enough. I'm recovering from a cold.
Talk about a collision sport.
I'm recovering from a cold. That's why I sound a little nasally.
Okay.
I could probably use a Rite Aid pharmacist right now to lead me in the direction of something.
There you go. But what you could also use, try a different type of medicine, Zach, and that would be to suck one back with the fellas. Because a little Miller Lite, can't go wrong. Great taste, less filling, and it's been the same taste since 1975 because a lot has changed over the years. But one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. When you talk about Miller Lite, you're talking about the best light beer in the business because not only does it taste better than all those other jabrones, those pretenders, but it's only 96 calories. So you don't need to have just one Miller Lite. You can have multiple Miller Lite and still be feeling good. Try put that on your Oura ring and smoke it, huh? Have a couple Miller Lights, you're still going to be fine.
Actually,
don't worry about that.
Might affect your sleep, but you're having a good time with the boys, so.
Yeah, you're having a good time because it's all about the moments. It's all about the memories that you make when you're drinking those Miller Lights with your friends because Miller Lite keeps it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, and only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. A light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, and only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. The best thing to drink when you're sucking it back with the fellas, the girls, everybody. All you need. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY-birds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
So I mentioned I had a cold on Sunday, and I needed a pharmacy. And so I went to Rite Aid, because, they have exactly what you need this time of year and throughout the year. With a My Pharmacy account at Rite Aid, you can refill your prescription, schedule a vaccine, get personalized care recommendations, sign up for prescription notifications. All you need to do to get started is a prescription at Rite Aid. Get started at riteaid.com/mypharmacy. Stop stressing about your prescriptions. Let Rite Aid refill them automatically. Enroll in automated courtesy refills. It's free, easy, and most prescriptions qualify. Talk with your Rite Aid pharmacist or sign up through your My Pharmacy account at riteaid.com. Restrictions may apply. Transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today. Just go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid, caring pharmacist, ready to answer your question and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything at Rite Aid you may need, including over-the-counter medicines, which I got, household products, cosmetics, and more. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Restrictions apply. I do want to address something in the chat here. Okay. Honest question, Zach. What was the point in asking DeVonta about Jefferson's contract? Just trying to make him feel bad. Inducing engagement seemed tacky. Okay. I will address this. Certainly was not trying to make him feel bad. I was not trying to induce engagement. I haven't even tweeted.
You asked a question that everybody has been wondering about.
So
it's a totally reasonable question. You don't have to get defensive about this.
No. I want to explain it. It's because when people are talking about a person or something in the news, I think players deserve the right to speak for themselves. And actually, there's an example that I I always think about. And I covered an opening press conference at Monmouth University for his name is King Rice. He's the basketball coach. He might still be there. And he had something in his past that I didn't want to ask him on the podium, and I kind of went up to him afterwards and I asked him about it. And he said to me, he's like, ask the question, right? That's what I'm there for. Like, he's like, I'm happy to talk to you about this, but I knew the question was coming, right? I was ready for the question. Ask the question. And in my time covering the Eagles now, going into 13 years, there have been so many times when people kind of dance around a question, and it's like, ask the question. That's why the players are there, to answer the questions. It's not for us to make them feel good, but it's to give them a chance to speak for themselves. And if a player doesn't want to speak, he can easily say, no, I thought DeVonta's answer was great today.
I thought he gave a great answer.
Yeah. So that's kind of my viewpoint on it.
What did he say for people who didn't see it?
Yeah, he said you don't count someone else's pockets. He took a life-changing contract. He's happy with it. He wanted to be here. He's happy for the guys who got paid after him. And that's, it was a great answer. And I bet DeVonta knew the question was coming, and DeVonta answered it well. And he got to put his words on it, because there have been a lot of people saying, what was DeVonta thinking? What does he think now?
It's the first time he's spoken since then. It's been, it's been a couple months. This is a thing that people are talking about. Yeah, absolutely. Give him a chance to talk about it. You're not saying, hey, but did you think you signed a bad contract? You said there have been all these wide receivers been signed. What's your perspective? Yeah. Totally reasonable, totally in bounds, totally fair.
Fair enough. All right. Just want to put that out there.
Okay. Now, I think I did like DeVonta Smith coming into the draft a little more than you did, but
I would have to look that one up.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case.
I don't know about that one. Yeah.
We can figure that out. All right, let's close out the secondary. The Eagles had a few tryout players participating today. 4 of them, in fact. One of them, a linebacker or a wide receiver named Brandon Smith, who is not the linebacker on the team, named Brandon Smith. Griffin Hebert, our old friend, who did not succeed in luring L'Jarius Sneed to the Eagles, but he is back. B.T. Potter, number 13. And then Perry Nickerson, who is the most interesting of the 4, I believe, and was actually involved today, was playing both inside and outside with the third-team defense over some guys who you might have expected to be ahead of him. And Nickerson's a little bit interesting because he was with Fangio in Miami last year. He's a 29-year-old, so this is a seasoned veteran. Started 2 games for the Jets in 2018, was out of the league entirely in 2023, but played 5 games for the Dolphins last year with Fangio. He's got the long dreads, so he's easy to find on the field. A little bit undersized, listed as 5'10", 179, but a player who I think I would actually expect that he will be signed to the active roster before training camp. That's just a tingly feeling.
It's a spicy prediction. I like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, we should do like a prediction show. You could before next week.
Lots of predictions.
One of your picks.
By the way, speaking of that, we should talk about the special teams period today, where the Eagles were practicing pinning the opponent deep on the punt. Right, they had the gunners out there, and Nick Sirianni was fired up. He did not like what he was seeing from the gunners. I believe Sean Stevens was the object of his ire at one point for not downing the ball that landed right about at the 4-yard line. Didn't try to catch it, tried to let it bounce and then missed it. Nick Sirianni was all over Sean Stevens, and Sean Stevens had been a tryout player who earned a roster spot. That said, the play of the practice, I believe, was made by Josh Jobe on a play.
Oh, I like that one. Yes,
where he was at the 1-yard line and then had to jump up, pull like the volleyball pool move where he jumps into the end zone, bats it back, lands in at the 2-yard line. Fantastic play by Josh Jobe. And then shortly after that, Quinyon Mitchell failed to make the play, once again drawing Sirianni's ire. However, I kind of think that this was maybe a chess not checkers move from Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell's thinking, you don't need me being a gunner, Nick. Sure. Let's leave that to Josh Jobe.
You know what? That's like a veteran move. That's the Chris Long, Kyle Long getting in a fight at the beginning of a joint practice to get out of practice.
He didn't draft me in the first round of down punts in the 2-yard line.
Yeah, I like that. like that. That's smart thinking by you.
Did you think that was? What did you make of Nick being so fired up about that?
Yeah, that's Nick for you, man. Attention to detail, right? Everything matters. I like that. That's part of Nick's charm as a coach. I like that. He coaches them hard. So
it was only like there weren't specific coaching points here. It wasn't like when he was working with Johnny Wilson on, go with the ball and instead of, pulling it around and going the other direction. It was just like, hey, we got to get this done.
Yeah.
We got to pin him deep. We got to pin him deep.
Clay was fired up as well.
Yes. Yeah. The Sean Stevens one is the one that really got him going because it was a good punt. He was right there and he just didn't make the play.
Yeah. You know what? If I was Sean Stevens, I would turn to Nick and I'd say, if your offense is good, we're not punting, man.
Yeah, I think that would have been a really smart thing of Sean Stevens to do.
I know. I'm making a joke. By the way, on the topic of special teams here, I don't want to say concerned. It's been 2 practices that we've seen, but Anaya Smith has a little trouble catching the football sometimes.
Well, Cubby had to drop today as well.
Yeah.
On punt return, but yes,
so might have been the son. Yeah. So it's
true. I think we should keep today's focus, Zach, on defense, and then we can flip the focus on it. We can talk about some general stuff today, but we'll get more into the weeds on offense in tomorrow's show as we continue to go through the depth chart and stuff. I think linebacker was interesting. Now we talked to Zach Baun before practice, and with the ones for the most part, it was Devin White and Zach Baun. Now Nakobe Dean with the 2s. Now he was not he wasn't a full participant there, and there was a time when it looked like he was the lone linebacker on the field with the 1s. But right now, just a snapshot in time, it feels like Zach Baun is ahead of him. And I thought the Zach Baun press conference was kind of odd because the last time we talked to him, he was talking about how excited he was to get a chance to rush the passer and be on the edge. But everybody was talking to him today like, oh man, like aren't you disappointed? Didn't you? I thought you wanted to rush the passer. Like, aren't you bummed? And everybody kept trying to get him in these things. But like, if he was rushing the passer, he's like 5th on the depth chart right now. He's like lining up with the 1s. Shouldn't we be asking him about? Isn't he excited to get a chance to be on the field on defense?
I see your point. My counter to that is if he expressed specific excitement about doing this, he wants to get back to rushing the passer, right? You're viewing it from like the perspective of this is his best chance of contributing to the team as an off-ball linebacker, and that very well might be the case. But if he's looking at it like what he wants to do is rush the quarterback, which was a sentiment that he expressed to us, then. But
I don't think it was all or nothing.
Oh, it's not all or nothing. But I think that I was genuinely curious to hear his perspective.
Well, sure, the perspective,
on that. And I also wondered, like, when we spoke yesterday to the assistant coaches, it was kind of articulated that this is really a passing camp right now, right? So if this is something that they think he can do, he might as well be in that role. Like if he's going to play inside and outside, Bobby King was saying, I think Bobby King used the same term that Dan Campbell did, which was like they're in pajamas right now.
And honestly, if you're just thinking about the reps, it's a great point because if he's ever going to be asked to do it, get him those reps now.
Exactly.
And then when you're doing more run stuff, get him on the like. He doesn't. It's not like he's going to get live pass rushing reps right now. So
Precisely.
Let him do the thing that he can actually work on.
Yeah. So that's why I framed the question: are you expecting the opportunity to do that this year? Right. And he's like, I'm not expecting anything. Like I'm doing what they tell me to do. Right.
That was actually, I did think that was interesting. Was sort of the behind the scenes of like there was never a conversation with him about like, hey, this is what we want you to do. Like here's the plan. It was just like they just told me to go with the inside linebackers.
Well, so I think sometimes there's this misconception about NFL free agency where, if I get offered a job somewhere, I'm like debating it for weeks. I'm like asking every
single person in your contacts is getting a text like, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah. Like I want to know like, what's the specific role? Like, how am I going to be used? What's the future? Like, 1,000 questions. Right. And in like NFL
Mr.
free
Cheese,
agency,
I will never stop flirting with Zack.
in NFL free agency. Okay. You get a contract offer and it's like, yes or no. There's no visiting. There's no, well, how are you going to use me? What? No. Your agent does work ahead of time in terms of getting to know the depth chart. Your agent does a lot of the background work, right? You presumably have, if you're a standout free agent, you have time going into free agency, like, all right, these are the teams that are going to be interested in you. If you're someone like Zack Baun, right? And I like you want an opportunity. And so it's the first day of free agency. A team's calling you. They have a new defensive coordinator. They have uncertainty with their defense. They're offering you a deal. There's some guaranteed money in there. It's like that's how this works in NFL free agency. We've talked about undrafted rookies where the team calls you. They say, this is what you're offering. Yeah. And it's not as if you're like, well, you know, what's the rent in that city like, right? You either stay or yeah. So yeah, Zack Baun doesn't have time to like talk to Vic Fangio or talk to Howie Roseman. You accept the deal, you go in, you have a physical, you meet your coaches, and that's it.
Yeah, there was an interesting play today with Zack Baun that I thought was an interesting snapshot of some big picture stuff with the team. Zack Baun is running with Saquon Barkley on a wheel route, and he's running with him pretty well. I would say that Saquon probably had about a half step, and I would guess that the design of the play, you might want to throw that ball to Saquon Barkley. Like, that's what he's here for. Now, maybe the design of the play is to open things up for Paris Campbell, who is coming across the field from the slot and is open and has a step, and that's the ball that Jalen Hurts throws. And it's a completion. It's a nice throw. You take your 10-yard gain and you move on. But you turn down the big play. And it's interesting to me because on the one hand, like, oh, Zack Baun's running with Saquon Barkley. Is that good for Saquon? Is that good for Zack Baun? Yeah, that's nice. Maybe he could play a little bit of linebacker. On the other hand, are you disappointed that Saquon Barkley is not running away from Zack Baun? Like, you would hope that he would in a situation like this be completely running away with him. And then the next level is, don't you kind of want Jalen Hurts to throw that ball? Like, isn't that what Saquon Barkley is here for? And we have been wondering if Jalen Hurts is going to make the best use of the non-AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, DeVonta Smith weapons in the passing game. It is a growth of Jalen Hurts that we need to see. And so, like, the Saquon Barkley addition to the offense being a real major difference maker relies on that a little bit. And he didn't throw that ball today. Just like one play, one snapshot of a lot of different moving parts that are happening with the team right now. I thought it was an interesting play.
That's a good point, because I expect that to be a Saquon play. Now, if I can circle back with you on the linebackers, what did you make of Nakobe Dean still not kind of being like? Are you operating under the presumption here that Baun is ahead of Dean going into training camp?
I think it probably has more to do with Nakobe Dean not being 100% yet. But I do think that it's an indication that Vic Fangio doesn't view Nakobe Dean as like a definite day one starter next to Devin White. Like, you would think that you would be working on their chemistry together. I think it is certainly notable. What about you?
It's very notable. It's very notable to me because when it was 3 weeks ago, I thought it was more injury. It was dictated more by injury. Now I'm starting to think that, yeah, Nakobe Dean's going to have to earn his spot with the starters. I think Devin White's a starter. Now, yes, it's still early, but I think Devin White's a starter. And then I think it's going to be it's going to be Baun or Dean. What did you make of Devin White out there?
I didn't see him.
He had an interception.
I wasn't
7 on 7.
seeing on him as much as I was last week.
Okay.
He didn't do quite as much, although he did. The one big play of the practice on defense was the first session of 7 on 7. I believe it was the second play. Reed Blankenship flashing in front, tipping the pass, and it's intercepted by Devin White for, what had to be the whitest interception the Eagles have had in a while.
I see what you did there. So I'll say this about Devin White. We've mentioned this with guys in the past, like Ernie Sims. This is the type of setting where he should excel. And I give him credit. Like, he moves well. He runs differently than other linebackers. He's a high level athlete. That's why he was the number 5 pick in the draft, right? So we'll see what it's like come later in training camp or in the preseason if he plays in the preseason. But I think Devin White's going to have a big role on this team this year.
And him, I bet that you did like more in the draft than I did.
Devin White. You know what, honestly? That year, the Eagles were drafting much later on, right? I don't know how much work I did on Devin White that year, but I certainly liked him at LSU.
Don't
right?
pass the buck.
He rode horses.
There you go.
Yeah.
Zach, I know we've been spending some time talking about sleep quality, that Oura ring that you've got. Well, one thing that is plaguing people all over the Philadelphia area in terms of sleep quality is that snoring, that sleep apnea. Well, happy to tell you about our new sponsor, Dr. Andrew Cohen at Sleep Healthy PA. They are committed to helping Philadelphia residents stop the snore and find solutions for sleep apnea that will allow you to rest well and improve your health. What causes sleep apnea, do you wonder? Well, there is a choke point in the throat that causes snoring, kind of like a kink in a garden hose. Okay, there's like this. Your mouth is coming back this far, and if you're too relaxed or your body is not in good enough shape, sometimes there's not enough room for the air to escape. So that's what causes the snoring. Well, Dr. Andrew Cohen is a board-certified doctor in dental sleep medicine, and his staff will work one-on-one with you to provide first-class care that will help meet your needs. Many physicians are not equipped to provide other options outside of CPAP machines. And more than anything, Dr. Andrew wants to make sure that his patients are healthy. And not for nothing, make sure that you're getting a better sleep, but also if you're lucky enough to have somebody else sleeping next to you in the bed, make sure they're getting a better sleep too. You won't be ruining their sleep because of your snoring. The team with Dr. Andrew Cohen is committed to stopping the snore. So tell him PHLY sent you, and you will receive 15% off your initial workup. The process for that initial workup is a 2-hour initial exam split into 2 sessions. There's the information gathering, where you get the medical history and the imaging, and then there's the reviewing results and sharing recommendations. Once again, if you are experiencing sleep apnea and are looking for a custom solution to stop the snore, reach out to Dr. Andrew Cohen at sleephealthypa.com or call 215-337-2501 and tell him PHLY sent you.
We were at the golf tournament yesterday. I met you guys there, and we were talking about sunglasses there because a good pair of sunglasses is so important. I was talking to Julia, I was talking to you, I was talking to Chris and to Jamie, and this time of year, if you have the right pair of sunglasses, it really it's eye-opening, literally, right? You can keep your eyes open. Well, get ready for the season ahead with the quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. This time of year, I need versatile sunglasses. I need sunglasses that I can wear on the sideline and that I can wear when I'm at my son's baseball practice or baseball game. Then I can wear if I'm going out to eat with Emily and we're sitting outside. So I need sunglasses that kind of fit all of these different criteria, and I can get them at Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
In this setting, we do not see much of the defensive line. I don't think that there's much to go over there, Zach. Is there anything else in the back seven that you think is worth touching on?
In the back seven? No, I keep making a point to myself to watch more of Trotter and just haven't seen much during the past few days or these 3 days. I'll try to get more tomorrow on that. No, I thought Isaiah Rodgers made a nice play on the ball.
He did
on
it
the
nice
opposite
DPO.
sideline.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just put in my notes like Rodgers again making a play. And I thought Christian Parker, the D-backs coach, had a nice little anecdote yesterday. You know, I asked him about Isaiah Rodgers, what his expectations were, and he said first he had to see, you know, when they would get their hands on him. But he was preparing for a game 2 years ago against the Raiders when he was with the Broncos, and he watched the Colts film, and he watched the Devontae Adams comeback route that Rodgers played really well, and he didn't know who that player was, and so he actually looked him up after that play and watched some of him, and kind of Rodgers has been on his radar ever since. And he also expressed what Rodgers said in the press conference with us last week, which was an appreciation for the moment. Like Isaiah, he says you can tell how much Isaiah Rodgers appreciates being there. Anyways, I understand we sometimes pay more attention this time of year to flash plays than like just strong, solid coverage, right? I like what you pointed out about Ringo, because I thought Ringo just had strong, solid coverage. But whenever you get your hands on a ball during these practices, it obviously stands out to us. And it seems every practice we've watched, Rodgers has gotten his hand on the ball.
All right. We will get into more of the weeds on offense tomorrow. And again, we're back at 3:30 tomorrow after practice. We can talk about some of these wide receivers. I think John Ross has been a little bit interesting. Ainias Smith also participating in team drills today for the first time that we have seen. But there is one, major and very heavy quotations, given that we are talking about a minicamp practice. But one thing that we should talk about today, Zach, is with Landon Dickerson out, and Lane Johnson sort of teased this during his press conference, that Mekhi Becton has been working at tackle and guard. And with Landon Dickerson out, Mekhi Becton was lining up as your first team left guard today. Now, Tyler Steen remained the starting right guard. Matt Hennessy remained the second team right guard. And so while it has sort of set up as a head-to-head match there, I think the fact that Mekhi Becton flipped from right tackle to left guard with the starters today is very notable. And I want you to also tell the listeners what Jeff Stoutland said yesterday about his theory of like rotating guys throughout practice for training camp and how that may work.
Yes. So I'll start with the Stoutland part, because this is something that those who watch us every day know that we've discussed this in terms of what are they going to do during training camp. And Jeff Stoutland, during his time with the Eagles, has had competitions where, I think back to 2021 with Dillard and Mailata, where it was literally one on, one off. And then there have been times when it's like, all right, this is the guy, and we'll just kind of study the film. And what Stoutland says is he much prefers to keep the same five out there. He calls it the 5-wheel drive, and where you get them together as much as possible and they can synchronize. So they are working together. It's kind of the idea of having all five with the same lockers next to each other, right? He thinks it's hard when you're rotating players in and out. Now, he says unless they're like I think the term he used is somebody surfaces, and you look at it and you say you better get a good look at this, or you might be making a mistake. Like, unless that happens, you're just saying let's go, and that's how they're kind of looking at it with Tyler Steen. So that jumped out to me, because that made me think, all right, Steen's the guy unless Steen does not play well, or unless someone plays spectacularly. That said, if Mekhi Becton, who they gave decent money to, right, on a 1-year deal, if Mekhi Becton looks good at guard and looks like he has rare traits, you got to think about it, because you're talking about a former top 15 pick who's 25 years old, who might eventually be your starting right tackle. Like, there's a lot there that you can't teach with Mekhi Becton.
I think there is a real chance that Mekhi Becton is the week 1 starting right guard.
Yeah. Now there's some people in the league who look at this and say, like, are you really putting a 6'7", 350-pound, 360-pound player at guard? That said, Jeff Stoutland is very specific about what he looks for. And I thought it was interesting yesterday when he was talking about his prototype of guard. And he mentioned Brandon Brooks, who's 6'6", right? Like Becton's 6'7", Brooks was 6'6", and he says like that's the guy. And he's like, ain't a lot of guys like that, but that's the guy. That's who you're looking for. And and Landon Dickerson, by the way, he's a bigger guard. The Eagles are not these. If you think about some other teams, like the top guards are 6'3", 6'4". I think Jeff Stoutland likes these bigger guards. So if Becton can do it, I would absolutely think like on the same wavelength as you that he could be the starting right guard.
By the way, the Eagles also signed Max Sharping yesterday, who a former second-round pick, has starting experience in the league. He spent his time today sort of rotating in, took a couple snaps at right guard, but continued fortification of just some lottery balls at a position where they don't have a definite answer.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
How would you spread your turkeys right now on the week 1 starting right guard?
Steen 60. Steen 70. Becton 70. 25. Hennessy 5. But it's still early on.
I think I'd go like 41-40. I think Becton has a real chance.
That'd be interesting to me. That would definitely be interesting to
me. Before we get to the book, what else is worth sharing with people from the assistant coaches yesterday?
Excuse me. I'm sorry for my voice today. So from the assistant coaches yesterday, Clint Hurt said that with Jordan Davis, the big thing with him is like the shape that he's in, right? He thinks Jordan Davis has worked on it. Jalen Carter, he said he got to know Jalen during the draft process last year. This when he was the D coordinator of the Seahawks. The Seahawks were down to Carter and Devin Witherspoon at number 5. They thought both would be really high-level players. He's already seen maturity in Carter since the pre-draft process a year ago. So those were some of the headlines there. Didn't get as much from Bobby King. I think you guys talked about it on the show. He said that he's a historian. He likes the Nick Sirianni's a historian. He said his favorite linebackers. You mentioned it: Buckus and Lambert and Taylor and Ray Lewis. From Christian Parker. I thought there was a handful of notable things kind of on. They're looking at Cooper DeJean in a few of these different spots, which we've obviously seen. He mentioned that he's been in communication with Bradberry. Bradberry's been here, and they've been on the phone and on Zoom meetings. So there was that. Doug Nussmeier, the quarterback's coach, his long history with Jalen Hurts. He's impressed with the way Hurts has kind of learned from different, has adjusted to different coordinators, and to different schemes. He thinks that's like a credit to Hurts. He needs to see the way Hurts learns, and he's kind of learning with Hurts. He mentioned this time. I think it's like 2.4 seconds, and he made like 2 references to it, and I said, "What's the significance of that number?" And he's like, "Oh, that's just it's just a number some people use. It doesn't have to be that number." And then we're like, "What's your number?" And he wouldn't say. But then I actually
69.
Actually Googled the number, and it's actually something that like the Cowboys have said. It's like it's a big Mike McCarthy thing. So clearly, this is something that was kind of like pushed. I had not heard this before, but like it's a big thing in Dallas where Nussmeier was. And then Stoutland, it was interesting hearing him talk about Jason Kelce. It was the first time he's spoken since Kelce's retirement speech, and just he says he feels good about he feels good for Kelce, but he's going to miss him. He says Kelce's family. He spends more time with him than his family. He says he's been a partner in this whole thing. He kind of spoke about the way he coaches, where he has the players introduce concepts, and like they install it in a game, and Kelce's creativity really flourished. But he really made clear, like the sky wasn't falling because Kelce's not there. He says they have a culture in place that was there when he took over. That there was Todd Herman's and there was Jason Peters, right? And like the show goes on, and I thought it was a pretty interesting, like on a deep level, that you think about yesterday, there's this golf tournament where Brian Dawkins is there with Brian Westbrook and Hugh Douglas, and you go on down the, Corey Simon, and then there's Jeremiah Trotter, and then in the afternoon on the NFL's official transaction log, Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox, they're officially retired.
Processed.
And the Eagles are preparing for a mandatory minicamp with the replacements for those players, with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. on the team. Like the NFL life cycle keeps churning, right? And it's definitely not frozen in time. So that's kind of, I think like even though Kelsey's not here anymore, there's other guys in there.
Well, it's a great transition, Zach, because if you're talking about the NFL life cycle, let's take a 25-year snapshot of a particular franchise. Tell us a little bit about what went into this book. We're gonna have lots of time to talk about it. I know that we will, and we'll get into it more. But this is it's described as a collection of essays. If you can explain sort of what went into that, is this original reporting? Is this you just plumbing your own depths? Give us a little bit about the process.
Well, a little bit of both. Like I don't want to be disingenuous. There's original reporting in there, but it is a lot of work that I've done over the past decade plus, and then some research as well. So it's a combination of those three in terms of how the material came in there. I was under agreement with the publisher Triumph Publishing for another book a year and a half ago, around the time of the Eagles Super Bowl. And
contingency book. Is that fair?
That book did not come to fruition. And then there was kind of like a pivot, and they brought this idea to me. That's something that they've done in other markets with other teams. And there's more of these books coming out where it's a curated history. So I have behind me the Eagles Encyclopedia by Ray Didinger. And I point that out because Ray's Eagles Encyclopedia is amazing. It was an amazing resource for me during this. But this book that I'm writing is not, or that I wrote rather, is not an encyclopedia. It's a curated history. So it's meant to it's not exhaustive. It's not going to have every season in there. It's not going to have every player in there, right? It highlights the...
Christian Ellis will be in there though, right?
Christian Ellis is not in there. It highlights the executives.
Good thing I already pre-ordered.
The executives. I'll give you a copy. The executives, the coaches, the quarterbacks, like the iconic players, some of the other stars, some of the great moments, and then the 2017 season, right? The Super Bowl season. Admittedly, it probably skews more toward recent years, the past decade, than some of those earlier years. But there is, there's a chapter on Andy Reid. There's a chapter on Donovan McNabb. There's a chapter on Brian Dawkins. There's a chapter on Brian Westbrook. There's a chapter on Jeremiah Trotter, right? But it does skew more toward the past decade. Like I'll be transparent there. And it's
well, you might have to add a Christian Ellis chapter based on the chat.
And it's not it's meant to, like, I don't want, I think there's some good nuggets in there, right? But this isn't like uncovering like the deepest, darkest.
This bad boy, gas it up.
Yeah, I am. The point is like this is meant for Eagles fans who have lived through this 25 years, which is undeniably like the most successful stint in franchise history. They won a Super Bowl in this period. They were in, like 25% of the championship games during this period, right? And it's a chance to kind of relive some of these memories and these moments. And I had fun talking to some people. I
can gas you up in one, like you have talked to some important people who are giving you important perspective on the arc of the last 25 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, me, I want to talk to everybody. I didn't talk to everybody, but I did speak to some people who have.
Notably, you did not interview me, which I did think was a miss, but that's okay.
who have perspective. And then there's a lot of things like, there's something I found when I wrote my previous book, which was it sounds so weird when I say that. Like I don't mean that
The truth.
as a flex where like you include something in there and someone like picks that up. It's like, oh, this is a great detail. And I'm like, this was in an Enquirer story back, and people are like, oh, I'm sorry, I might have missed that day. Right. So there's like, there's nuggets in there that might be new to some people, but might have been out there. And then there's some nuggets in there, by the way, that were new to me that I either unearthed during this or that in speaking to people, they brought up to me. There were a few occasions where like some really important people in this organization's history said to me, like, I've never shared this before. And when someone says that, you're like,
yeah, we're talking.
Oh,
That's
nice.
the nugget that you need to be telling people. That's a good
you
hook.
get excited. But you don't want to tell that now. Like you don't want you don't want to give away the best stuff now. But you save that for like the launch day publicity, right?
Yeah, but you don't have to tell us what that is. But now, a good seed. I like that.
Yeah, there are a few different things, where there's one person I spoke to where I remember I'm like, what's something that like people don't know about that would have been a really interesting turning point in the organization. And I got an answer here, and I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. I've like not heard of that before. And then there was something that I heard, and it was like an amazing anecdote. And I'm like, this is going to lead a section. And then I go back and I find out that Bo Wulf wrote about this like 8 years ago. I'm like, oh, shit.
I don't believe that.
I can say Bo's name is in the book. Well, he's in the book twice. He's definitely in the books in the acknowledgments, but he's in the book by name.
I'm gonna cry
when him and Brendan Graham's wife are in the elevator together.
Oh,
yes, and it was just a great way to close the chapter.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
How did you, from a writing exercise standpoint? How did you approach like writing one of these chapters on one of these, whether it's a season or a player or a coach? How is that different than if you were writing an article?
That's a good question. It's a wider lens, right? So you have so much more material that you're kind of working with, right? When you're writing an article, you're typically just dealing with like the material specifically for that article. But this you can kind of broaden you widen that lens quite a bit. And then the other thing I'll say too with this is that I got to admit, I wrote this book last summer. There were a few chapters like the Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni chapter I waited for till after the season because they were still early in their career, but I had to get the book in. The book was due last summer, right? And if you think about like what the sentiment about the organization was last summer, so when I reread the book, when I was going through the edits a few weeks ago, I was like, oh, the book certainly takes on a tone that you would write following a Super Bowl season, more so than a tone you'd follow when they're 1-6.
Matt Patricia, yeah.
Yeah, so I will say it would probably be in my best interest, like from a marketing, from like the feeling of the consumer, if the Eagles are like 4-0 and the best team in football when this comes out, because
it's interesting that it comes out in the middle of the season. The arc of the first 3 games really will
exactly, because
play a big role.
Fans are like, I don't think this about Howie, and I don't think this about Jeffrey, right? But like, if you think about what the sentiment was after the Super Bowl last year, it was definitely they were definitely riding the wave, and rightfully so. They were coming off the Super Bowl season.
Well, I mean, we talk on the show, Zach, about your indefatigability, how hard you work, having just not even watched, but just been aware of what was going on last summer as you were going through this. I mean, that's your time off, and you're grinding out these 10,000 word stories and plumbing the arc of the last 25 years. I applaud you. Congratulations. You are wonderful.
Well, I genuinely appreciate that. That's nice of you to say. I'm not being self-deprecating here. I guess I'm like opening up a vein here when I say this. It was it was a very art, the expression, it's better to have written than it is to write. Was very much applicable here. There were times when I was not my best self because it's like, the book's 87,000 words, and
it's a lot of thousands.
Yeah.
Did you do that for Brent Selleck?
I did not do that for Brent Selleck. But Brent Selleck has an appearance in there around the Snow Bowl chapter. But no, I've never run a marathon, but whenever I ask a marathon runner about running the marathon, I'm always like, what's it like at like mile 3 or mile 4? When you're like, oh my goodness, I have 22 miles to go here, right? And so when it's like July 7th and you have 60,000 more words to write, you're 20,000 more words in, or you're 20,000 words in, and you're making calls, and you're teaching a class, and you're doing this podcast, and then you're doing like this Connor Barwin story for The Athletic at the time, and it's like, is the juice worth the squeeze here? But the reality is that when it comes out and you get there's nothing cooler. Like I said this with Andy McCall a few weeks ago. There's nothing cooler than walking into a bookstore and like seeing something you put a lot of work in displayed. So so I appreciate you bringing it up, and I imagine we'll talk a lot about it. I don't have my talk. I posted it. I posted it this morning because they finalized the cover yesterday. Right. And so they sent me that, and they're like, you can put this out there now. I haven't wanted to put it out until there was a cover, but I don't have all my talking points, and there's still some things that I'm kind of like some details I'm ironing out with the book. But September 24th is when it comes out. You can pre-order it now on Amazon, and I'm happy to talk a lot more about it this summer.
And I will say, as much as that pathological work ethic continues, and I know that you've got plenty going on, it is nice to see, based on your dress, that you are spending time at the beach this summer.
All right. Do you guys think this is a beach shirt? This is not a beach shirt. I would not wear this. This is not a shirt I would wear to the beach. Bo, first thing he says to me is, "Oh, you look like you're going to the beach."
That's not true. The first thing I said was, "Congratulations on the book." How is the response?
Yeah. This is a white linen shirt. Okay. This is like this is a shirt you would wear.
Chic to a T.
No, you wouldn't wear a white linen shirt.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what I think. Emily likes it. That's what matters.
Yeah. When I pulled up my app today for what it felt like outside, it said it was going to feel like 95 degrees outside. It was 88. So it's going to feel like 95. I was looking for something airy. I was looking for something, modern, and I'm happy with. I didn't think much of it until I got to work. So that's all. This is not something I would wear to the beach.
I didn't say anything, and then you sat down, and a different media member was like, "Hey, did you just get back from the pool?"
Yeah, I'm going. Like my son has his last baseball game tonight. I'm not going to wear this on the field of baseball. I'll put on. This is a shirt I would wear out to dinner.
Emily likes it. That's all that matters.
Joya, what's Joya's view here? Or does she not want to come on? No. I'm sorry, Joya. You don't have to chime in. But I will ask her after the fact. I think this is a fine, it's
a nice shirt, but it's
a dressed up t-shirt.
It's beach casual.
All right. Nonetheless,
Julia says it's a nice shirt.
Thank you. Cousin Grace says linen is the fabric right now. Yes. Emily said, so why don't you get a linen t-shirt to wear, like a nice linen t-shirt instead of like a heavy polo shirt, right? And so I was like, all right, I'll wear linen t-shirts. I thought it was like a nice upscale shirt. That's all.
Nobody said otherwise.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I had to go ahead. I mean, we're gassing you up so much. We had to have one bit of conversation. Yeah, all right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. You can pre-order Zack's book on Amazon. Is that where you want people to go to right now?
Yeah, there was going to be other places where I direct you to as it gets closer to the release date. But right now, if you want to pre-order, you can go to Amazon. Sure.
Okay. Well, you can pre-order the franchise, the Philadelphia Eagles, a curated history of the birds, coming September 24th on Amazon. We'll talk plenty more about that. We will also talk plenty more about what happens at Minicamp tomorrow with a particular focus on the offense. Jalen Hurts did throw another interception today, but I thought looked a little bit better than he did last week. We'll unpack that a little bit, and plenty more to come over the course of the rest of the week. We will be back at 3:30 tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We will talk to you then. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.